What's poppin'? It's your boy Moses, aka Nomo, chilling right here in the Lit Out Podcast. Got a very special guest in the building. I got Mr.
Gil Hurtado. I'm the current vice mayor here in the city of South Gate.
Welcome to the Lit Out Podcast. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you making all the way from wherever you came from to the podcast.
I'm from here. I'm not far. I didn't have to go far.
I know, because you have to live here to be part of the city council, right?
Yeah, law requires that, when officials represent their community, that they actually represent, because any policy that is set has to have the same impact to us than it does to anybody else, the same needs, the same wants. So, it's required.
There's a lot of people that are online that are very loud that don't have very nice things to say about you. But the reason I wanted to have you on the podcast is because I witnessed with my eyes, hours and hours and years of your service to people in the community like me. I played baseball at the park since I was 4, right? From 4 to like 12. And then I went on to play high school. My sister played there. I think you coached my sister.
Awesome.
My brother played there. I'm sure you umpired some of his games and stuff. So, when I saw the attack on that happened on social media that we'll get onto, we'll talk about a little bit more later. But when I saw it, I thought it was a little unfair because they picked like a very small subject and made you look like this big bad guy when in theory, we're not best friends. I don't know you personally, but I've definitely seen you donate your time to the city and stuff like that. So I definitely want to have you come on here and talk for a little bit.
Absolutely. And, I think as we grow up, and at your age, I'm sure that there's some things that you've come through that have made you the person you are today.
Right.
Whatever experiences we have. Look, I grew up in East LA. I was born and raised in East LA. My parents were from Mexico. My father was from Benjamo, and my mother was from Guadalajara. And, one of the first things that I remember is my mom passed away when I was about 3 years old.
Okay.
And so that made it kind of tough for my father because, what did he know about raising 2 children on his own? And so he brought his father along, who's also from Mexico, to kind of sort of, bring us up. And so when I would go to school, I remember my friends all having their moms out there and, picking them up. And me, I had my grandfather, which was great for me. But, I didn't know what it was like to have a mom. And so my father did the best that he could, And I remember growing up, a friend of mine lived 2 houses away, one of my best buds. And, you remember the movie The Sandlot. I mean, those are my friends. We had like
a Sandlot team.
Yeah. And so that's what started it all. And how it happened is my friend Ernie, he's probably passed away. In his family, an illness went from father to sons and stuff. So, but I remember his father, his name was Trini. He came over and told my father, "Hey, Chewy, can I take Beto and Chewy, my brother Chewy, Beto, to the park? I'm taking Ernie to go hit some fly balls." And so I had no idea. I'd seen the game on TV. They would show the Dodger game, I think, on Channel 11, and the Angels were on Channel 5, and I loved it. But I didn't have a glove. I didn't know any of that stuff. But my friend, his father had all kinds of gloves, and he says, "Oh, okay, let's go to the park." So we were out there, and he says, "Are you right-handed or left-handed?" I said, "Well, I'm right-handed." So he gave me the glove, and I'm trying to stick it in my right hand, and he says, "No, it goes in the left." And, "No, but I'm right-handed." I was about 8 years old.
Right.
And by the way, I might as well fess up. My daughter says that when I start talking, I start sounding like Forrest Gump. But these stories are true. I really wish they weren't because they sound not real, but it was.
So great detail.
Yeah, and so there I am, and I put the glove in the left hand, and then Trini says to me, "Go out in center field and I'll hit you a fly ball." I says, "Great. What's center field?" I had no clue. And so there I am. He points out there. He says, "I want to hit you the ball. And you catch it. It's that simple." Okay. So he hit the ball away from me. And I tracked it, and I ran. And I dove, and I caught the ball.
Oh, wow. Your first ever catch was a diving catch.
Yeah. And then Trini comes running like, what did you do? What did you do? I said, well, you told me to catch it. Okay, I won't do it anymore. He says, no, you did what you're supposed to do. Well, then why are you getting mad? He says, no, it's just that's not, you're what, 8 years old? How did you do that? And the rest is history. I really love the game. And at one point, I remember telling my dad I wanted to play baseball. But back where I lived in East LA, I lived on the border of East LA with City of Commerce, and that was the closest park.
Okay.
The next closest park to us was known as Laguna Park. Mm-hmm. I was trying to remember because it changed names to Salazar Park after the reporter who was killed during the moratorium, the riots of East LA.
Oh, I didn't know that. I don't know why that's what they called it.
Yeah. He was a reporter I think he was for the LA Times, and he used to write a lot of real critical articles on the sheriff and the treatment of Latinos in the Southeast area.
Interesting.
And so there was always word that there was a hit out for him. But during the riots, he went in and hid in the bar called the $1 Million. And the sheriff kept on telling the people inside, coming out. And at some point, he just raised up his head, and the sheriffs were throwing a canister of like a smoke bomb. And it went through the glass, and it struck him right in the head,
wow.
And it killed him. And so, that was very tragic that was going on. But anyhow, they named that park Salazar Park after him. And so my father said, that park's too far, And I thought, oh, man, my friends played baseball, and I really wanted to play. Mm-hmm. And so one day, my brother and my buddies, the Sandlot group, right, our Sandlot group, were playing at Bristol Park. And the coach from the park came up to us and said, hey, why didn't you guys try out for the baseball team? You guys are pretty good. And we do, and he's, well, we don't live in City of Commerce. Right. And it was one of those, well, look, you have to live here. So if we give you guys fake addresses, will you play? Where do we sign? Where do we sign?
Right.
And the reason he wanted to do that was because in that area there were not a lot of baseball players. Okay. They played other activities. And the coach was just tired of not winning. I guess that's how he explained it to us.
Yeah, well, losing is not fun.
No, it isn't. But, look, the way I see it is participating is fun.
Right, but winning is better than losing. Everyone, some people are afraid to say it, but winning is always much more fun when you win.
Well, we're gonna get into a different debate there because, look, I coach my girls, and if my girls are watching, they'll know that I tell them that that's not what I want from them. What I want them to do is execute. We train, we teach, we develop, and we execute. Mm-hmm. And if the other team is better equipped that day and you did everything you're supposed to, I don't care what the outcome is. But if you go out there and you play horrible and you win, there's nothing to celebrate. Mm. You want to go out and do the best that you can, have the best outcome.
That's a good point. Like having max effort, I guess, is also
well.
Very
and
important.
You said you played at the JA. That's part of the image I want the JA to have. But anyhow, so back to what I was saying. And so there was also a lot of children who could not play sports because for a lot of people, particularly in East LA where I grew up, even a little cost is too much for a lot of people. And when my son was about 8 years old or so, he wanted to play, at the park. And so I took him to South Gate Park, and it was kind of weird how this whole thing started because, I didn't mean to be offensive to anybody. You never are, and sometimes you offend people without wanting to. What happened was that I was at home. I called the South Gate JAA office, and I said, hey, look, my son wants to play ball. What do I have to do? Oh, we're taking signups tonight. Oh, okay, well, what do I do? Just bring a check or cash, and you fill out a contract. Okay, how much is the fee? Who do I make the check out to? So he said, just put SGJAA on it and make it for the amount, whatever the amount was at the time. So since I lived like 3 blocks away, I got my son by the hand and we walked to the park. And I got in this long line. And when I got to the front, the guy that was there said, oh, we can't take this check. I said, what's wrong with it? He says, well, you have to spell out Southgate Junior Athletic Association. He said, some guy told me it was just SGJA. Come on, man. And he said, look, we're going to be open for another 15, 20 minutes. You got time to go home and get another check? So I picked up my son, ran 3 blocks home, got in my car, drove all the way back. And then she's the current secretary, one of my best friends, she was there. And she helps me out. And she says, oh, okay, good. I got your contract. Here you go. And oh, you know, you don't have to write South Gate JAA on it or Junior Athletic Association. Just put SGJA. I said, you guys got to get your act together. And they said, wait, excuse me. You know, we're trying to help you here. I said, I apologize. I'm sorry. It's just I'm a little frustrated. I went home. And she says, well, look, if you, you know, think you can, you know, we can always use help. I said, okay, well, maybe I will. I apologize again. And there I've been now for 30 some odd years, all because I opened up my mouth and I was critical of something. And, but you know what? There's no regrets, you know, there's no regret because I think when I first got involved, I started making recommendations. The program was in the red at the time. They were struggling. Right. They were struggling. And there was a time back in history where the city of Southgate used to give the program $60,000 a year to operate. We get nothing now. We get absolutely nothing. We're self-sustaining. And my whole goal has been to make it affordable. And I don't want anybody to have a fake address either. I don't care where you live. If you live on the dark side of the moon and you want to play in our program, come on in. And then we work with people who can't afford it. You know, we try to give them a lower fee or whatever and try to tell them
I don't know you guys do that.
Well, we don't announce it because
right,
then everybody would want to do it, right? But we've made it as affordable as possible.
You know what? Because I was telling you off camera, in February I took my son to sign up, right? And he played last season, and it was fun. He rather play there than travel ball, to be honest. He has more fun playing at the park, and maybe because he's just at a higher level than the other kids, and he's just big fish, small pond kind of thing. But I was still amazed that the price was basically the same price that when I was a kid. You know, I think it's 85 now or 70.
It's 80.
It's 80, and I think it was like 75 when I was a kid or something like that. And that's just crazy, just with inflation and just things that I was assuming it was gonna be like $100, 120 or something like that. And I think it's still worth like 2 months worth of baseball. It's not bad, right?
And that was the whole idea behind it, you know. And again, I have been involved with the program for well over 30 years, and I've surrounded myself with a lot of really, really nice people, you know, Cindy Escabel, Giovanna, Laborin.
There's an old dude with Renato. Dude, I recognize Renato and Cindy, dude. They were literally working. They were there when I signed up, you know.
I always kid around that he was my coach when I was a kid. Doesn't like that, but it's not true. I'm actually older than she is. Okay, just
it's a funny joke, though. It's a funny joke.
Yeah, but you know, and again, when I think of all the kids that have come through the program, I was at a market one day, and I was talking to this man, and my wife said, who is that guy? And I said, well, he played ball for me years ago when he was about 8 years old. She said, oh, did he come? No, I recognize him. How do you recognize the face after 30 years, you know? And you get attached to the kids, you know, you get attached to them because they just want to play. You know, we got to give our children the best opportunity to play, you know, not just in sports. It's not all about sports. If they like folklorico, let's help them out. If they like music, let's help them out. Swimming, you know, some kids like poetry. There was a guy who had a business on Tweedy Boulevard. I don't know if you remember it. It was next to the Allen Theater. There's now not a clothing, but they sell like sewing material and stuff like that. But it was called Cafe Kashmir.
Oh, yeah.
So Cafe Kashmir they did like coffees, crepes, and all kinds of real good stuff, right? But they used to invite people to go in, and especially like on a Thursday, I think they used to call it open mic night. Okay. And people would go in there and they would either sing or play an instrument, or they would
is it like comedy also?
Poetry. Comedy, read poetry or whatever. Cool. And it was really nice, and I really appreciate the fact that the guy that was there was doing this, and you know, doing it to help the kids in the community. You know, and then there were the people that would say, "Oh, no, that place should be shut down. They're doing drugs and the whole bit." That's no truth to that. And I asked the person who made the comment at the council meeting, "Have you been in there?" No. well, then how do you know there's drugs going on in there?
Maybe he thought it was just like, you know how people are like, oh, it's a hippie kind of thing, hippie vibe.
And there's nothing wrong with that hippie thing. I'm a guy
well,
from the 60s.
They're making assumptions, you know?
Well, yeah. And again, but look, you appreciate everybody's comments because, you know, it makes you aware of, you know, well, maybe I should keep an eye out for that.
Right.
And because I had heard that before and my son was going there a lot, I wanted to make sure that none of that stuff was going on. And I never saw it. Never saw it.
Two things just because you brought it up, right? So Southgate used to give the JAA $60,000 a year. Now it doesn't. Mm-hmm. So where do you guys find the money to support? And then the JAA is just basketball, baseball, softball. That's it, right?
Yeah. So we're self-sustaining, you know. So something happened about the year 2001 or so, 2001, 2002. So let me talk a little bit about the snack bar because that's where we get some of the money that we make. It's run and operated by volunteers. Okay. And the way it works is this. Back years ago, before the JA had it, there was a company that had it. It was a business. I shouldn't say a company. It's a business. It's like a family who owned it.
Just the snack bar.
Well, but their contract was an exclusive contract. They're the only ones that were allowed to sell in any park in Southgate.
Oh, okay.
So Holidale was theirs.
But there's no snack bar in Holidale, is there?
No, but they had that roving vehicle.
Oh, they had like a van or something?
Yeah, and it was one of those that they lift the thing up and they have sandwiches and they have Gatorades, they have coffee, they had
that's how it started.
Yeah, and so no one else could sell.
Okay.
Now, there were good people. What I'm about to say may sound like I'm saying something bad about them, and I'm not. What I'm saying is that they had the right to say no to us. And what I meant by that is this. If we had a tournament, we would tell them, hey, listen, we got a tournament coming up. Can we use it as a fundraiser? Can you let us sell like breakfast burritos? No, sorry. Well, can we sell waters or Gatorade or coffee? No, sorry. And they would say no to everybody. And I understood. I mean, like, on a day like today, there's not a lot of activities going on at the park, and the snack bar would be open.
Nobody would go.
So they would make no money. So when you look at a tournament, that's a big money maker for them.
Right.
Well, by allowing us to sell, it eats into their profits and stuff. But there were some times where they actually said yes to us, but they were very strict. We'll let you sell between 7 and 9, but remember at 9:01, you better not sell one more item. And they did it because they had to protect their interest. They had an investment in it, right?
Of course.
So then what happened one day is that they said, we don't want to do this anymore. We're going to give up the contract. And at the time, we had some corruption here in Southgate. And, you know, when I say there was corruption, it's because it was. And that's why the guy who was behind the whole thing ended up going to federal prison for 10 years. And we recalled the people that were involved in it.
It's not just an assumption or like you bad-mouthing somebody.
No,
like
it's a fact. It's just a historical fact.
You can look it up.
Yeah, the people can look it up. I heard that they teach a course in some of this stuff at UCLA. So there you, yeah. And so what happened was that I guess they wanted to, they meaning the people that were being accused of being corrupt at the time. And remember, at the time it was just an accusation. And they wanted to say that, oh, look, we support youth programs. So they gave the JAA the snack bar. And so that's how we got it. And the idea was that the proceeds go to the JAA. And that's how we operate. Now, we've always seen vendors at the park.
Okay, hold on. Before we get to the vendors. So you used to get 60,000, then they stopped. Corruption happened. So, and like, did they say, like, okay, all right, we're going to stop giving the 60, but we're going to give you the snack bar? It was kind of like
no.
Or it just kind of like happened at the same time?
It wasn't even at the same time because the $60,000 was way before my time.
Oh.
I still don't know where that number came from, but the park director, Steve Costley, was telling me, he said, you know, because he's getting, you know, I don't know when he's going to retire. He's been there a long, long time. Wonderful, you know, human being. I'm glad that, you know, he's been the director there, and more importantly, that he's my friend. I really appreciate his commitment to our community. Steve told me one day, he says, you know, what you guys are doing there, I wish I understood how you guys do it. We see other parks and other programs. They get money from the county, or they get money from. They meaning the park staff, tried to help us get grants. And I remember there was a lady there by the name of Dodie Mosby. She was the park director at the time. And she made this very spectacular letter, real impressive, trying to get us funds. And the response she got back was, sorry, but that money, we give it to organizations that are struggling. But it's pretty clear that this organization is doing good. So I remember thinking, geez, we're getting punished for doing good. I can't believe that. Maybe we should let it go a little bit. Maybe they'll give us money, right?
Yeah.
But Steve mentioned to me, he says, the city used to get, in the budget, we used to give $60,000 to the JAA, but many years ago, we just stopped. We don't even know. I don't even know when that happened. But that being said, we were given the use of the snack bar. And we felt, it's good. We're running it. It's a lot of effort, but it's for the cause.
And then let me also say, legendary nachos, chili cheese nachos.
Yeah.
Fries, legendary fries.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's not like gourmet. It's like one of those things but it's slightly above 7-Eleven. I have a brother-in-law. He's from HP, and every time he comes to see my son or nephew play, he goes, "Oh man, we gotta go get some nachos."
Oh my God! Look,
I'm all like, "Hey man, you gotta be careful with those."
And look, I've taken teams to tournaments, and we go out and we'll buy the nachos and whatever. And sometimes when you go out there and when you buy the nachos, you can tell they've been there a long time. And so we make sure we try our very best to keep our stuff as fresh as possible, And then again, look, if you were to go today and say, hey, I want to buy some nachos, you might say, oh, that's pretty expensive. But we're not making a lot off of it. If you go to other parks, they charge a whole lot more for what they sell in terms of the items. Because again, what we're trying to accomplish here is an affordability thing,
right,
for the people. In fact, we even let our coaches know, look, if it's after the game, if one of the parents didn't bring the snacks and you guys want to get them, we'll give you guys a team discount. So they'll give them hot dogs or whatever it is they want at a discounted rate, just making enough to cover the cost and maybe a little bit of profit, but not the regular price. And again, that's the whole idea behind it, And what I started to say is that there have always been vendors at the park. When the other business was there, they would call up and somebody would show up and shoo them away.
You're talking about like paleteros and guys like that.
And then we decided, so what? They don't really bother us. Until back around 2019, for whatever reason, an accusation came about that, we were taking money. Obviously, we're taking money. And I said, wait a minute, where's this coming from? And there were two individuals that were saying, look, we have photos. They have 10, 15 vendors out there every single day. Mm-hmm. And yet they report that they made this amount of money and this amount came from the pushcart people, because we separated. And you have to understand, our contract called for the JAA to pay the city 8% for the use of the snack bar. Yeah, and you would think that the city should just say, no, whatever you guys make.
They gave it to you, but they want 8% off the top,
off the top,
gross.
Off the sales, yeah, off the gross, right? And so what happened was that, we just had to report how much we made during the month. But our treasurer and our staff like to be very meticulous. We kept the daily count. And then account separate from the snack bar and the pushcart vendors, okay? So then, but city staff understood, and most of the people that knew us knew that there was something beyond that. There was we don't have 10 to 15 vendors out there. So one day I was having a conversation with the city manager that we had at the time, Michael Fladd, and Mike, he knew everything was good. I mean, he went out and kind of took a look around, see how we did things. And he said, I said to him, listen, I just want you to know the backstory on this. We don't have 10 to 15 vendors. We have 2. He said, well, they're saying that they have photos of all these 10 to 15 vendors. Well, they probably do. but they're not with the JAA. They're vendors that are here all the time selling.
Right.
And he said, well, look, why don't you, how, does the average person identify your vendor from the others? I said, well, they can't. I mean, they're just,
they all dress the same.
They dress the same. They dress
typical uniform.
Right? Yeah. There is no uniform.
No, typical, like, what I mean is, like, a street vendor usually wears, like, a big hat, like, long sleeves, and, like, looks like...
Not ours. Ours dressed like you and me.
Okay.
Just went out there and would sell. And so Mike Flatt said, why don't you get your vendors a vest or some polo shirts or something that identifies them as that, and then have the carts identified. So we plastered SGJA on ours, just a piece of paper. We printed it out, out of the computer, SGJA, and put it on there. And I think we even have like the business license on it because we pay taxes. We, the sales tax, all that good stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Complying with all state laws, state regulations, state board of equalization, all that stuff. We have health permits. We have the big letter A and everything. I mean, everything. All our vendors, like all our coaches, all of us are all fingerprinted just to make sure that it's safe for, people to be around our vendors. And so we got our vendors blue T-shirts.
I've seen them.
And they say SGJ on them. So about a month or so after getting them the shirts, I had a conversation with one of the staff members, and they said, hey, there was a guy in here selling, and he didn't have a shirt on, and we told him that he had to leave. And I said, well, they don't really bother us. He says, I know, but he doesn't have the SGJA shirt, and he got mad. He said, how come you're letting them? And I said, what'd you tell him? I told him that you guys have the contract, and that we identify them by the blue shirt and the SGJA thing on there. So it didn't take more than, I'm going to say about 2 weeks, when some vendors had a blue shirt and their card said SGJA.
You gotta admit that's pretty funny. Like,
that's
you gotta do what you gotta do kind of thing. Like,
yeah. And then, so I told Mike Flatt that. And then Mike Flatt said, oh boy, and they're at it, Gil. They keep on saying that you guys are stealing money. We know you're not.
So there's pressure from like this group, whether it's online or like
it was two people that were doing it.
So it's two people online.
Two people. No, they were going to one of them was a park commissioner, and one of them used to be a council member here in South Gate.
Oh, okay. So you know who they were?
Oh, we knew exactly who they were. I had a friendship with the guy that was a council member, but that went sour kind of.
What exactly were they like alleging that you guys were stealing money or property?
Yeah, because there's so look, here's the things that they pointed out. So one of the things that they pointed out was that we have 10 to 15 vendors, and how is it that we have 10 to 15 vendors and only reporting $130, $140 money made from them
per day?
How is that possible? And that's a great argument, but they're not ours.
Right.
We only have 2 vendors, and our 2 vendors weren't there all day long. They were there during like the game time hours or whatever, because the snack bar, all we had to do was open up the snack bar.
Which is like 5 to 9 kind of thing, right? 6 to 9?
No, I think we open up a little bit earlier because remember, we're volunteers, right? And so the people that run it, they either leave work or they got family to take care of, and then they come out here and they run the snack bar. And there's not many activities going on at that time anyway. Mm-hmm. And so, but that's how that part went, right? So that's 1 out of 3 things, right? They're claiming that, here we are taking money from that. The second one is kind of really silly, and we've explained all 3 of them away, but it's like relentless. And what they're counting on, I guess, is that, look, I'm like this, right? People are going to say what they want to say. If I responded to every argument, every attack that comes online, I shouldn't be a council member. I should stay home. I should just do other things I want to do. But if I'm going to worry about today I must have gotten like 3 or 4 phone calls. Hey, did you see somebody made an attack on such and such a page? I said, okay, well, thank you for letting me know. He said, what are you going to do? Are you going to do? No, I'm not going to do anything about it. What do you want me to do? Just ignore. I'm not a child. I'm 63 years old.
You're not a keyboard warrior?
No. And so sometimes I'll respond, but just because, a lot of people are telling me, don't let them say this about you and stuff. But
right.
they're going to say what they're going to say. So the second thing that they pointed out was that we had this gentleman helping us out by the name of Felix. He passed away recently.
Is that the guy with the long hair?
No, that's JoJo. He was a coach for us. Yeah, the guy was he was really short, real huge,
husky.
Yeah, because he used to be a weightlifter at some point. You know, he used to compete in those kind of things, and his body stayed that way. But you know, he gained a little bit of weight, and so you kind of put it together. And
right.
He got pretty big, but his heart also was pretty big, you know. And so he was out there helping us out. So he came up to us one day and said, "Hey, I'm going to be selling at the movies at the park." I said, "No, don't go. Let the people there enjoy the show or whatever." He says, "Oh, but you know, I want to help the kids out." So he went out and against what we told him, and we didn't know about this until after because he apologized to us. Because what happened is that one of the guys that I'm going to try not to mention the names, but he went out there and I want to buy such and such, and he sold it to him. And then he started taking pictures of him. Okay, so he felt intimidated, went back and shut off. You know, he just shut down and put the stuff away. I don't know how much money he made, but it was so insignificant that night that the next day, I think he opened up for a few hours and that was it. So when we came back on Monday, he left the Friday envelope and the Saturday envelope. And we said, "Why'd you even open?" We told you not to even open. And he said, "Well, I really wanted to help." And so, okay. But all right. So what we did is that in the books, because, you know, we thought it was going to be closed, the treasurer and the secretary kind of just put down 0 on Friday, 0 on Saturday, and combined the two envelopes with the Monday envelope. So there's no money missing. They just put it down. And, oh, look, they're stealing because, look, if they sold at the movies at the park and they put down that they made 0 money on it. Well, it's been explained to them so many times. And at the end of the day, we don't have to keep a daily record. We just happen to do it. You know, and we've never had to keep a daily record.
And those records are public? Like he saw that there was a 0 there or he had access to it?
Well, it was only made access to him because we kept records of it and we turn it in with our financial statement. Every month, the JAA is required to submit a financial statement to the city of South Gate.
And those are public record?
Absolutely.
Okay.
People can access it. And it's so funny because the second gentleman of the two was a park commissioner. And here, I want you to imagine that you're in the audience listening to a park commission meeting. And this park commissioner says, I have a question about this South Gate JAA financial statement. It doesn't look right. And he's questioning everything about it, but makes a motion to accept all the financial records of all the other youth organizations. And I'm sitting there thinking, but the others didn't submit a financial record because they're all volunteer groups and sometimes they fall behind and they fail to submit a financial record. But yet, we religiously submit a financial record, but he kept on accusing us of hiding something. So I said, well, wait a minute. You're not questioning the absence of the other financial records, and you're questioning the one that is submitting financial records. Do you know how that sounds? Do you know how that makes you sound? And the other commissioners would tell him, you're singling out this youth organization. We're not here for that. And again, anytime anybody gets involved in politics, whether you're elected or appointed, there's a code of ethics that you have to pass. And in it, some of the things that you learn is that, let's say that I, as a council member, am approached by you and you ask me to do something and you and I are pals. I can't give you preferential treatment. I can't do that. That's a violation of law. Let's say that you and I were sworn enemies. I can't deny or deprive you of anything you may be entitled to. In other words, you cannot put personal feelings into these things. Mm-hmm. And when you're doing that, it's called a people bias. You cannot have a people bias. If you look it up, you'll see it. People bias is like when you go to jury duty, right?
Yeah.
You might have a relative who's a police officer, and the case is involving a police officer, and they ask you, do you think that your relationship to an officer is going to have an impact? And if they believe you, they let you stay. And if they don't believe you, they boot you out. But that's how this is here, right? And to everybody that was there, the commissioners, it was pretty apparent that there was a bias. Yeah. Okay, so now the third thing. So again, the first one was the amount of vendors that were out there. The second one was the zeros on a Friday and zero on a Saturday, and yet there were some sales, right? But it was so insignificant that it was just easier to transfer it all to the Monday. So the third thing was this document. And what it shows January, February, March, April, May, the whole year. Next column was the gross sales. And the third column set net. Okay? And so when you look at it and you do the math, you say, just to make simple numbers, I'm a bit of a mathematician, but for those who are listening, it might not come as easy to them. Let's say that we made $100 in January.
Gross.
Gross. And you look at net, it would have an 8. And let me explain that. Let's say in February we did a little bit better and it was 200. The next number would be 16. So if you go all the way down the line and then next month 100 and then 8 again. Okay, I do that for simplicity of the math, okay? So then the argument that these two gentlemen had was, look at this. How can any business stay in business grossing $100 and only netting $8? Okay? Mm-hmm. They're right. There's a problem with that, though. This was a document created by the park director that we had at the time. His name was Paul Adams. Mm-hmm. That net was net to the city. That was our rent, 8%. So if you do the math on each one, it was always 8%. 100 times 8%, $8. 200 times 8%, $16.
But they were claiming that that's what you guys were like submitting as profit.
Yeah. And it's been explained to them multiple times.
Was the real paperwork shown to the same people that were complaining?
Yes. In fact, I brought it up over and over again. It was explained to them by the park director. He said to them, no, this is what this signifies. It's not to the city, not to them. And I told the park director, why didn't you just write rent instead of net? He said, it's my form. It's for my record keeping. I didn't think anybody was going to make an issue out of it.
It's not like an official document.
It's not an official document, but it's there for the records. And if you were to look at it, you'll see that. You will find that that's exactly what that is. I actually did at the request of a friend of mine who's our current treasurer, Jose de la Paz. He said, you know what, Gil, I'm tired of all these attacks on you on this thing. Why don't we let me help you make a video to explain it. And we did it in one take. We did it all in one take, kind of like what we're doing here. We're just talking, but I explained it to him, and I had so many people comment and say, we believe you, that makes sense. But think about this. In one of these days, I'll forward you the copy that they're flashing around, like, look at these records. I'll show it to you. I'll send it to you so you can see it. And if you do the math, it's always going to be 8% for 1 year, for the next year, every single year, every single month is 8%. And then the yearly total, multiply that bottom $15,000 times 8%, and it'll show you to the penny. How is it that we netted only 8%? No, it's because that's 8% to the city. Mm. And you're listening to me, and it's making sense to you. But when they present it, and it's like going to jury duty. Anybody who wants to listen to what the arguments are from that end, I hope they never go to jury where they're on trial, and they're not allowed to put a defense, because they will know how I feel, right, which is the accusations that come about without hearing my side of the story and then sitting there and believing that. That's nonsense. It's not fair. It's not fair to my family. It's not fair to my friends. It's not fair to the community. So the thing with the street vendors was that the reporting of them was very simple. We would just say, hey, there's a vendor. He's not with us. We didn't ask for them to be removed. We just wanted to report that they're not with us. We never would have done that had these two gentlemen never would have accused us of stealing money.
Because I was going to say earlier, like, I remember, like, the paleteros with the little one and the bills. I remember them in the park when I was small, like, buying ice cream from them, stuff like that. I remember them, like, I'm like, since when did they stop being allowed, right? And then there's that video of the park pulling over that guy by the basketball courts. People are recording, and I don't remember if they took his stuff, or I think they gave him a ticket.
That was an old one. That was in 2019 that happened. And here's the sadness about it, that the same people who are making these accusations during the street fair, here's how the street fair works, right? The Tweety Mile gets the permit to go out there and operate. And in order for them to pay for their expenses, they make an announcement. Any vendor that wants to participate and put a canopy and do whatever they want to do has to come in and fill out this application, and they pay. All those vendors at the street fair paid $1,000. All of them did. I think they gave discounts to a couple of people who they felt that they're not going to make a lot of money.
Like those, like the food vendors?
Yeah, the food vendors they paid $1,000, and there were some other people there, like face painters or whatever. They didn't pay $1,000. They paid like $300 or whatever for the 3 days, right?
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and so, but that's their call. Whatever they charge people is their call. Well, some of the vendors that were like at the park or whatever with the push carts, they showed up at the street fair,
right?
And they were bugging the South Gate PD to go in and kick them out. Our PD doesn't do that.
The Tweety Mile was calling the police.
Yeah, but one of them was the guy that was making these accusations about the park or whatever.
And back then when they were doing that, it was against the law for street vendors to be there. Were there like citations, or was there like a city ordinance against street vendors back then?
So let's be clear. In 2018, my buddy, Ricardo Lara, who was the state senator at the time, he helped pass a law, and it was signed by Governor Brown. It was Senate Bill 946, I believe. And the Senate bill, in essence, decriminalized street vendors. Okay?
That was 2018.
2018. So before that, it never should have been a crime.
Right.
It never should have been a crime, because it's not a crime. They're not, what are they violating,
Selling food to kids.
Yeah. So it's not a crime, Yeah. And so when you think about it, that what Senator Lara did was proper. He made it easier for them, the vendors, to operate. They made it easier for them.
Not get harassed by police and stuff like that.
Right. And so what would happen, though, is that when you don't have enough code enforcement officers, and we don't right now, we're hoping that we can. There's people who complain about people doing illegal conversions on their houses, that people are parking on their lawn or whatever. Those are violations, or those are code violations, but we don't have enough staff to address them. So if somebody reports street vendors, there's very little. The police aren't going to go out there. They might go out there to support a code enforcement, or in many cases, it's the Department of Public Health. Look, I'll give you a good example. We at the JAA wanted to sell ice cream cones or sundaes.
Okay.
But it was going to be too much, because meaning the Department of Public Health, requires a little sink with a little, like a running water type of thing. If you ever go to 7-Eleven, you'll see they have the scoop in this thing with water, and it's running water.
Oh, at Thrifty. I've seen it at Thrifty.
Okay, so there you go. Wherever they sell ice cream.
It's to clean the handle, right?
Yeah, it's to clean the handle, but the water has to be continuously running. It was going to be too expensive for us to have it. So we don't sell it. Why? Because we can't do that. It's a violation of the Department of Public Health. Mm-hmm. So
at Tweety, they called the cops on the vendors. Then what happened?
The cops didn't do anything.
They just talked to them and...
Yeah. And so then one of the guys who runs a social media page, and one guy that used to be a council member here, they were out there involved in kicking out these vendors.
They try to do it themselves.
Yeah, they were doing it. And I don't know who else. I think they brought in some security to go out there and kick them out. But they're the same people who are attacking us, saying that we're anti-street vendor. Now, I mentioned earlier, right? How I try to do the things based on my experiences in life, right? Like baseball. Why do I love baseball so much?
Yeah.
When I used to work for the post office, I was a supervisor, and supervised for over 30 years. And some really odd things started happening at the post office. We were being instructed to alter employee clock rings, which is a violation of federal law. I refused to do that. If you were to Google USPS falsification of records, you'll see article after article because they're doing this. That's wrong.
It's like stealing time, stealing money.
Stealing money from employees that worked really hard.
Oh, it wasn't giving them extra time. It was taking away extra time.
It was taking away the overtime that they had worked.
Like trying to finish their bundle or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They wouldn't get paid for it.
And they were not getting paid.
And you would pay them? Like you would just like sign off their...
I got myself in a lot of hot water because I refused to follow those instructions. I remember having a conversation with a guy who was the postmaster. I said to him, give me that instruction in writing.
Yeah.
He says, I don't give instructions in writing. I said, yes, you do. He said, no, I don't. I said, yes, you do. Because when all supervisors get trained, you give us instructions. And when we got into this new computerized training system, we are told that the only clock ring changes you are allowed to make are those that are justified. In other words, you come into work, instead of hitting begin tour, you hit in tour and you swipe in. I have to fix that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you forget to clock out.
Or you forget to clock out.
Right.
And you say, boss, I forgot to clock out. I left at 3. Okay, let me put your clock ring in there. And then I have to document why I did that.
Right.
I said, we signed a paper that we understood that we are not to make unjustified entries.
So give me
me that instruction in writing that you want me to alter these people's clock rings, and I'll do that. Get out of my office. So, when I had the opportunity, they offered this early out to every employee who was at least 50 years of age and 30 years of service. Well, I met that criteria, and my wife and I were doing well. My wife says, you don't need that stress anymore. You got to leave that. And my son and my daughter said, yeah, you don't need that, Pops. Let that go. And so I retired early at the age of 53, you know. Cool. And so it gave me the opportunity to go back to college. So I went back to Cal State Dominguez. And I got a degree in global studies. That's the studies of things that impact communities like South Gate, low-income communities. So what happened was that at Cal State explained to all the students that very much like when people are going for their masters, you have to write a thesis. Mm-hmm. Because there was an accusation that students from Cal State weren't prepared to write good papers. We now, for the bachelor's, had to write, they call it the summer seminar. And we had to come up with a topic, that we thought was good. And I remember, as an example, a young lady who lived in Long Beach didn't like all the fracking that goes on. That's where they're kind of sort of like looking for oil and all. They use water pressure, whatever. And they don't feel that it's safe. And so she made her paper on that. With me, I had so many different ideas in my head. I didn't know which way I was going to go. And then I started, because at the time I had been hearing a lot about the abuses of street vendors and immigrants, undocumented immigrants. I'd heard about complaints from women who were doing the same job as a male, but yet you look at the salaries and it's not fair. Mm-hmm. Women get paid less than men, and why is that? That's not fair. And being a coach at the high school, I coach girls softball because I want them to know, don't ever let anybody tell you that because you're female, you've got less opportunities. No. You fight for everything, and you demand your rights are respected. You should be getting paid fair wages, the same as any man, right? Anybody, you should get paid fairly. And so I thought I'd do my paper on that. And so what I did is I went, for example, not only did we have to write, we had to, do like an abstract, and then, we had to identify the process that we went to get our data. We had to read, I read over 20 some odd they're called peer-reviewed journals. In other words, they were reviewed and approved as legitimate documents to consider when you're making a paper. In any case, I also had to do an on-the-field like experiment or a process, right? So I went to Home Depot and I spoke to the gentleman there. At first they were reluctant. I did what I could. I couldn't pay them, but I would take them coffee, juices, and, pan dulce, And then I spoke to some vendors on Southern, you see the stretch there, they're selling flowers and stuff. And these stories were horrific. I remember one guy at Home Depot told me of a situation where he and a couple of others there at Home Depot accepted to work for a two-week project out in downtown LA, so that they would pay them at the end of the 2 weeks. So this guy would come up in a truck, pick them up, drive them to LA, and for 2 weeks he had them there. At the end of the second week, they said, "Okay, we're done." They thought they were going to get paid, and the guy said, "Oh, no. Good luck." And he didn't even drive them back. He left them out there. And what can they do? They're undocumented, That's not right. These people, they're human beings, And I also spoke to a vendor of flowers on Southern Avenue. A couple of them, I approached them. They didn't want to talk to me. They didn't know who I was, and I understood. But one guy said to me that he, it's okay, I asked him, "How much do you get paid?" He said, "Well, I make $1 for every bouquet I sell." I said, "Wow. And how many do you sell in a day?" He says, "Well, if I'm lucky, I can sell 20. I said, "So how long are you here?" "I'm sometimes here 8 to 10 hours. I said, You're 8, 9, 10 hours and you just make like $20. He says, "Yeah, and I'm here 7 days a week because I need to get the money. I need to make money." And so here's a guy who, let's say it's tops $20 a day for 7 days. That's $140. That's, why are we not looking out for them? Why are we allowing, somebody abusing these people like that? And so during the council meeting, I made that comment when I asked that we address the concerns. Again, I mentioned how, as an elected official, we have a municipal code. So if somebody went to the business license and tried to get a business license to sell at the park, for example, the staff would have said, "Sorry, you can't, because there's an exclusive contract to an organization and only they can sell." That's what was written in the municipal code. Mm-hmm. The state of California, through Senator Lina Gonzalez, passed a Senate bill that says that even if you have an exclusive contract, you cannot prohibit vendors at parks, which I have no problem with, because now they can sell, and now we won't be accused of having vendors out there, 15, 20 vendors, whatever they want to say, because these people now have rights to be there. And I insisted that we also don't put any parameters. The first thing that staff had done was that they couldn't be within 100 feet of a ball field. No. I think it was Josh Barone, because I had this conversation with some of my board members. I said, I want to make sure that they're allowed to sell anywhere. We don't care. And so somehow I guess Joshua had heard about that, and he made the comment, "Hey, look, I make a recommendation." I seconded the motion. So we removed that.
Okay.
And so now vendors can be out there, provided they go out there and they get their permits. So they're going to be allowed to be out there.
That was as soon as the Senate bill thing happened, 2018, or?
So this is now 2022. Okay, thank you for asking the question, because I left that out. So this was 2022. So 2018 made it easier, mm-hmm. but there were still some problems. And again, if you had seen some of the cities that were out there, they were still trying to find ways to subterfuge the ability of people getting permits by making it difficult. Mm-hmm. It's like saying you have to do this and this and this, and every vendor will say, "Well, that's too much."
So they don't even bother doing it.
They weren't even bothering doing it. So that, to me, that's wrong. We're not here for that. We're here to do the right thing. So what happened is that we've been getting a lot of complaints about street vendors, and we're getting complaints from street vendors saying that they were being harassed by other people, like restaurant owners or whatever. Hey, you can't be up here. Hey, you can't be out here. And so at one point I told the city manager, well, what are we waiting on? We gotta place an item on the agenda to update our municipal code, because we're required by law to do that. Mm-hmm. If state law, when you take the oath of office, you follow federal law, state law, and your own municipal code. But if they're in conflict, we have to make sure that the one that has more authority is respected.
Right.
So in this particular case, if you listen to the audio, you'll hear even me say, I know this is going to be politicized. And sure enough, what they've done on some social media, pages is that they took snippets of what I said and left out important things. And if you listen to the actual entire recording, you'll hear me say, these people have rights. And I even told the story about the vendor who sells flowers out there, making $1 per every bouquet. These people, they're out there in that hot sun. They're struggling, And so what we should do is look for a way to help them. And then they're saying now that we made it so that people won't get it because we're demanding that they have to have Social Security cards. That's not true.
Oh, so you don't have to be a citizen to get a permit? They
have to have even like a California ID, and people can get the California ID even if they're undocumented.
Okay, so that's a big like fact right there. That one of those things that you were saying about like the fact and not or kind of things.
Yeah, and again I mentioned this. So look, even before I retired, I love doing research. I love reading. I love knowing what's out there, because if I have to make a decision, I want to put the best thing I can forward. I want to make sure that I've given my community the best that I can. And I'm really surrounded by very committed people also. I mean, Pilar Avalos has been doing a really good job, does a lot of research. Maria Davila. I mean, she's got, just so much commitment to the city. Al Rios, the same thing. And the newly elected, Joshua Barone. They really do care. And so they do everything they can to make sure that what we follow are laws, but how can we use these laws without breaking them to help our community? And, that's all we wanted to do. That's all it was. And if you listen to the meeting, that's what I said. But what was posted on social media was Vice Mayor Gil Hurtado came up and directed the city manager to put an item on the agenda to target,
Right, that's what they said. And that they have to like wear their like Social Security on a badge.
That
or
is not.
That's what they were saying. That's what they're saying.
Yeah, but come on, that's not. I mean, people should really read what's out there. Listen to the.
If you when I heard that stuff, I'm like, damn, that's messed up. Like, why would like that sounds like so like overpowering, like tyranny type of thing. But they were like they were saying that you were doing that, and then they were coming after you. How does it feel when you're up there in a city council meeting and you have to let them talk, and you're just sitting back listening to these guys say like all these? Because I think a bunch of those guys got kicked out that day, right?
So look, I actually respect what they're trying to do.
I do too.
I respect. I think that so many street vendors. Look, when I also mentioned this, and I'll get back to the gentlemen that are coming in, and not just gentlemen. There's other people that come with them.
Right.
Somebody has to stick up for the vendors too.
Yeah.
I totally get that. But that's what I'm there for too. They may not believe it, but I really do care about these people. My family, they were immigrants.
Yeah,
right?
My dad's been a street vendor for 25 years.
Yeah, and so
it's for me too. It also has like a special place in my heart, because my dad's been robbed at gunpoint.
That's where I'm heading with this.
We've survived. My dad's been working 7 days. He works five days at his regular job, getting paid always. My dad's always been a warehouse worker, and he's always getting paid minimum, whatever the minimum is. And then he still goes out Saturday and Sunday, wakes up at 6 a.m. to go work. He's been working 7 days forever. So the street vendor thing for me, it really helps us out, because a lot of the nice things we've ever had growing up was because my dad had this side job, which was street vending.
Yeah, and again, I think that they're when you look at why they do it, is not to cause any other people problems, because they want to feed their families.
Yeah, not to get rich,
No, and they're putting kids through school, elementary, middle, high school. I mean, they always need something, and,
right.
And this helps them out. I had a gentleman call me up, and he was complaining that this guy is driving around a panadero, and he's making this real loud music. And I hope the guy actually gets his permits and is just told, hey, that music is just too loud, just lower it a little bit. Because it reminds me of when I was a kid. I don't know if it was here in South Gate, because again, I grew up in East LA. There was it was called Helm's Bakery, the Helm's Bakery truck. It was a yellow van.
I've seen pictures of it.
Yeah, and so whenever that little horn came about, we all ran outside, and they had the best cream puffs out there, and donuts, glazed chocolate, sprinkled, whatever, and buttermilk. I mean, all them donuts that I loved.
Right.
And today I went to a panaderia because I love my pan dulce. I'm a vegetarian. I eat healthy. And when I say I eat healthy, yeah, pan dulce is good. I'm going to eat my pan dulce. Maybe my doctor might say, oh, that's too much sugar in you.
Right.
But you know what? You can't deprive yourself of anything. And so I hope that I hope the panadero has a permit. And if not, I hope that when staff approaches them, they guide them through the proper process, because I don't see a problem with that.
And then I wanted to talk also about the reason why you're here today is also because I did leave a comment on one of the South Gate Facebook pages about street vending, because my dad always wanted to sell at the park, and then all this uproar and social media, attacks or whatever information between one side and the other side were aimed at you, and me, like I said, knowing that you've volunteered thousands and thousands of hours. I've seen you with my own two eyes volunteer your time to kids, and you've never you're not one of those coaches that loses their mind and starts cussing. You've always been a pretty straight up stand up guy. So in my mind, I'm I hear what they're saying, but it just doesn't make sense with the Gil that I know. And like I said earlier, I don't know you. I don't go eat dinner at your house. We're not friends like that. But with the Gil, I've seen you for all my life growing up at the park. I'm there's something wrong. So that's why I know when I leave a comment that you're going to respond, because I always see you responding to comments in a nice, polite manner at all times. So then I think last week you gave me a call, and we're on the phone for about an hour, and you took your time explaining to me how my dad can get a permit to sell at the park. Mm-hmm. So that's why I asked you to come on here, and I wanted to lend you my platform, which is not very big, but it has an audience that's from the area, the Southeast area, where people can learn or find a smooth pathway to getting their permits.
Yeah, and that's what staff was directed to do, right? They're not out there to harass them, and if they are being harassed, I hope that they report them to us, because we want our staff to go out there and help them get the proper permits. And before I go on with that, I want to go back, because you mentioned the people that come out there that are coming in and using profanity, and look, freedom of speech,
right,
it's got a very interesting history, right? And back in 1992, there was the beating of Rodney King. Mm-hmm. And I think you were 2 years old at the time, right? But I'm sure you've heard about this.
Right.
So, but why do we know what happened?
That's the reason why my parents moved to Southgate.
Yeah. So the reason that we know about what happened was because somebody had a camera out there.
True, very true.
We would never have heard about that had it not been for this video.
Right.
And so about 10 years ago or so, I think it was back east where it happened, there was an arrest being made. And an officer, it was being recorded, and another officer came, you can't record, you can't be doing this, you can't be doing that. I said, wait a minute. I have the right to do this. It's my First Amendment right. I can videotape, I can be here. And it got into a dispute. The judge agreed that people have a right to videotape, say whatever they want, and you cannot stop them.
On public property, public land.
Right.
Like a sidewalk or your house.
That's right.
So not inside a business or a private place.
No,
right?
So let's say, for example, I'm on the sidewalk and I see you here, and you can have a picnic in front of your house, and you tell me stop recording. Well, you know what? No, not. I was going to leave, but now that you mention it, no, it's my First Amendment right.
That's completely legal.
That's completely legal. What I can't do
take a step into your yard.
I cannot go into your yard. Well, I can go into your yard, but once you tell me to step away, I have to step away. It's just like somebody knocking on your door, asking questions or whatever. They can do that, but once you tell them, no, I don't want to talk to you, please get off my property, they have to get out.
I like to ask those questions because I think a lot of people like to twist and turn the First Amendment, freedom of speech laws, whatever, whatever way they want to, you know? So I just want to make it clear.
Yeah, I had the honor and privilege of being, every 10 years we have an LAUSD redistricting committee that's formed, and there's 15 people that are part of that. To be one of 15 was a total honor. One of the things that, one of the bad memories I have on that was that all the speakers that were speaking, they get 1 minute. And in a 1 minute span, one guy used the N-word to one of my colleagues who's black. And it really bothered me, but there was nothing we can do. So they can go up there and say, F you this, F you that, and okay, next speaker. I would hope that people understand that, I would hope that we want to teach our children about civics, which includes politics. And I would hope, because we have children that go to City Hall and, they get an assignment, go to City Hall and watch a council meeting, that they don't have to listen to that.
And then I'm just going to stop you real quickly. You're very well spoken. You're probably one of the most articulately well spoken people around. When you mean civics and politics, like in layman's terms, what does that mean? Because maybe there's somebody out there that doesn't know exactly what you mean when you talk about.
So politics, again, look, when I got into this world, into this arena, into this forum, I didn't know what it meant to you. I didn't know what it meant to the people that are listening. To me, politics is like negotiating or trying to reach a certain, agreement with people. Common ground with people, right? But to me, I look, again, I supervised for the post office, and I try to be the best supervisor I can be to each individual. I train supervisors, and I remember one guy telling me, trying to impress me, oh yeah, I want to treat people like I want to be treated. I said, oh, okay, well, I guess that's good. He said, you don't agree with that? I said, well, look, let me see if I can do it this way. What you really want to do is you want to know all of your people, the people that you have to supervise. And you want to know them so much so that you treat that person not the way you want to be treated, but the way he wants to be treated, the way she wants to be treated, like each one of them want to be treated. Because it's like if, let's say that I go up to my wife and say, hey, happy anniversary, and I buy her a brand new baseball glove. Well, that's great for me, but that's not for her. So I have to get her what I know she wants, And that's why I've been happily married for over 42 years because, I understand. I know my wife. I know what she likes. And there are things that she puts up with a lot of my stuff. Why? Because she's my wife. And I put up why? Because she wants to do that. Do it. I may not like it. I may sit through a TV program with her and I'm saying, oh my God, why am I watching this? I know why, because she's my wife and I love my wife.
Oh, we've all been there.
So, but she goes to ball games with me because she knows I love it, right?
Right.
And so she might not love the sport as much as I do. She may enjoy it to some degree, but
that's actually a really good way of putting what politics is.
Yeah, and so when I think of civics, I look at it more like you're learning certain government things, certain policies and things like that. But politics is more the engagement part of it, right? But I'm like this. Look, I couldn't tell you a single episode of Star Trek, but I think I watched them all. But they were so over the top for me that I didn't get it. I just like the entertainment of it. But I mentioned that because in case there's any Trekkie out there listening to this thing, there's a thing called the Kobayashi Maru. I don't know if you've ever heard it. Okay, the Kobayashi Maru is a scenario that they meaning the leaders of whatever they're supposed to be, right? The Starship Enterprise or whatever, they put if you want to be captain or you want to be an admiral, or you want to be, promoted, you get put into this no-win scenario. It's a no-win scenario. And Captain Kirk, the main guy, he's the only one who ever passed it.
The guy from the Capital One commercials.
The Capital One commercials. And the guy from, what is that? The Unexplained, whatever that program is. I'm not doing commercials for them, but that's it. And so the Kobayashi Maru is a no-win scenario because what they do is that, so there's bad guys called the Klingons, and they've captured some civilians, and the Starfleet has to go in and rescue them. But it's set up so that if you go in and rescue them, not only will the other people die, but so will your people. Everybody dies. So the other choice is, no, we're not going in there, and they just back off. Well, that's not good either because you allowed the people to go. You didn't even try. Well, Captain Kirk, when nobody was looking, changed the system to give him a little bit of a break so he can, a small chance of winning. And they did. And they rewarded him for, originality or something like that. But the reason I mention that is because we often face our Kobayashi Marus out there, right? We have these no-win scenarios, right? What does that mean? If you look at, for example, according to our code enforcement, if Christmas passes, I think you have 2 months or 3 months to remove your Christmas lights. People have them on all year.
Some people never take them down.
They never take them down. But neighbors, and you can have code enforcement pass by, they won't do anything.
Okay.
But as soon as a neighbor calls it in,
you have to do something.
They have to go in, and people get upset. So we go out there and we tell them to take it down, they get upset. If they don't go out there, that person's going to get upset because it makes the whole neighborhood look bad. And right. And a lot of times people use it to attack their neighbors. Oh, ya me cayó mal, that guy, I can't stand him. So they call it on their neighbors. Or they're parked. Oh, there's no parking out here. Oh, look, I'm going to get him this time. He's parked his car on his lawn. And they call on their neighbor. Unfortunately, code enforcement has to go out there and do it.
I want to end like the chapter on this podcast. Like we're gonna talk more, but I want to get over I want to get past the street vendor stuff.
Yeah.
So do you have anything that you would like to say to the people that are street vending, the public, or the people like the auditors that are saying things about you? Like, is there like a statement or something that you would like to tell them?
Well, I just wish that people would get to know who I am as a person. They were carrying signs up there saying that I'm a pedophile. Really hurtful things, and I've learned to, kind of sort of deal with it. You go through that as a child, right? You see people calling other people's names for whatever, and you deal with it. I'm not into violence. I don't go into things like that, but I support what they want to do. In other words, bring awareness for street vendors and their rights. And unfortunately, there's laws that have to be followed. And I never did anything to attack the vendor. That's not true. That's totally not true. And again, when you think about the situation at the park, for many years, vendors were at the park, and we never said anything. I think the only time that there might have been 1 or 2 times where somebody was selling something that we had a visit, for example, a couple of times, as a matter of fact, from the Department of Public Health telling us that they're there to investigate somebody got sick from an item that they bought at the park, and we don't sell that particular item. Well, the person said they bought it at the park. I said, yeah, but we don't sell it. Mm-hmm. There must have been a vendor here that sold that, but we couldn't tell you because we don't sell it. And so when we would see a vendor, we'd say, hey, just be careful because there are people here that are, ours are clean. Ours are, I get it. But, we just don't want the Department of Public Health to come out here. The other is that we never reported street vendors before, but once we were being accused of having all these street vendors at the park, and we got photos, look at this, we got photos, 10, 15 people out there. And they're on, you can listen to either park commission, I don't know if they record park commission meetings, I'd have to check on that. But council meetings are up there, and you can hear where those comments are being made. we don't have 10 to 15 vendors. And so at the advice of a recommendation of the then city manager, Mike Flatt, he said, look, just let park staff know if there's somebody out there selling, let them know that they're not with you. And that's all we did. We never called that they go out there and get, and sometimes staff would say, oh, can you let the watch commander know? And so our staff will let the watch commander know, because that's what park staff would give them as advice. And all we wanted was a record that there was somebody out there selling not associated with us. So we don't get accused of taking 10, 15 people out there selling that weren't ours. We see them all the time, and we don't say anything to them. And so the people that are going in got information, but they only got snippets of what somebody had an agenda, or whatever you want to call it, to attack me and the council. So they took little snippets of comments that are being made. Look, I'll give you a good example on that. It's a little off track, but it makes the point. I mentioned I was part of the LAUSD Redistricting Committee, and what we were trying to do there was coming up with a map that helps us out. And right from the beginning, you have to understand that this committee sets up districts based on the census records. Mm-hmm. And in 2010, if you look at the map that was approved by the Los Angeles City Council, here's South Gate and the Southeast communities. And we're connected with the section up here with Eagle Rock. Look how far that is.
Oh, yeah. We used to play them in the playoffs for some weird reason. Like, we're in the same...
Right, but...
They're so far.
They're so far. How is it that a representative can represent us? By law, every city must be connected. In other words, like Southgate, Huntington Park, physically, geographically touching each other.
Right.
Well, how are we connected with Eagle Rock? It's so far up there, right? Well, what they did is that, here's the map like this. They got a little strip of land and they say, oh, there you go. Now you're connected. Had it been challenged in court, it would have been found to be a gerrymandered map. So right from the beginning...
What does gerrymandering mean?
Gerrymandering means that there's it's a map designed with some ulterior motive.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So gerrymandering, for example, when you talk about Democrats and Republicans, they're always fighting because, let's say that there's a lot of voters here in such and such a section, and they all want them. If you can keep a few Republicans here and a lot of Democrats, you'll always have a Democratic representative. But then, let's say that somebody comes up with a map and there's Republicans here and they shift it. Now you have just a few Democrats and a lot of Republicans. And so when you make a map like that, now you're going to have representatives that are Republican, or vice versa, right? Depending on which side you're on. So when you have a map that's designed to always have someone from the Eagle Rock area represent Southgate students, well, there's might be a tendency or a perception that more money goes up there than here. Why? Because there's not enough voters here.
So you guys made two different maps? Like you guys split
So
the
at
map.
the end, so at the beginning, I'll start again. At the beginning, I said, I will not support any map that resembles the map from 10 years ago. And during the meetings, I would go in and I would say, no, that's not what I want. No, I'm sorry. But I was very polite. I would get messages from people say, you're very polite. And I hope that they see through that politeness that you're still aggressive and trying to fight that bad map. I said, yeah, but when it comes to having to scream and yell your point, it's because you don't have a good argument.
Right.
If your argument is good words are good enough. That's it. And that's how I try to approach these things. And so I said, I will not support a map that looks anything like that map. So at the end, we had two maps, map 1 and map 2. Map 1 was the map that I really wanted. Why? Because it broke us away from that northern end. And it put us together with people that were East LA, part of East LA would have been with us. So it connects nicely. Mm-hmm. And we could have had, and again, not all of East LA, because we would have had a good Southeast LA map where now we can focus on similar issues
on us, on
impacting Huntington Park, Cudahy, all the cities that are connected. We all have the same issues.
Right.
And so I have fought against map number 2. Every single meeting you hear, map 1, map 1, map 1. So on the second to the last day, a young lady says, I just want to see where we're at. So I'm going to make a motion that we pass map 2 and offer that to the Los Angeles City Council. And right away somebody said, I'll second that motion. That was not good. So I said, well, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Did you say that you want to see where you're at? And so you want us just to vote for map number 2? Yeah, just to see where we're at. Okay, well, why didn't you say to see where we're at, let's pass map 1? She says, well, I guess I could have done that. Well, why don't you? Well, I already set map 2 and we have a second. So then the chair, who wanted map 2 to pass because he had an ulterior motive, his wife was going to be running for that seat for that district. And everybody knew that. He denied it. Everybody knew that.
And she ended up running for that seat.
Yeah, I'll get to that. So I said, well, I guess they didn't think I was well-versed and didn't understand how the rules work. So I said, okay, so we have a motion in a second. Well, then I would like to, at this time, introduce a substitute motion. And I want to substitute map 1. And the chair said, no, you can't, because we already have a motion and a second. So we must vote on that first. I said, no, that's not the way this works. Mr. Attorney, can you please explain the rules to him? Mr. Executive Director, can you explain the rules? Yes, Commissioner Hurtado. We have a motion and we have a second, but you've introduced a substitute motion. Now, if there's a second, a lady by the name of Dr. Franco says, I'll second that. Oh, okay. Well, now you have to vote on that number. You have to vote on the substitute motion first. Now, we were on Zoom. Now, I want you to imagine all these people's faces.
Look on their faces.
All of them were on the screen. And during the whole thing, people are moving around. It's like somebody put a pause button because all of a sudden everybody was like stunned. The only one that was moving was me and Dr. Franco. So then the chair said, so we have to vote on the substitute motion? Yeah. Well, it failed anyway.
Right.
It failed. And then we voted on the other map, but it went 8-5. Now, what LA City Council was a 13-0 vote. Now, I had mentioned to you before that there were 15 of us. 2 people dropped, so they were no longer there. So there were 13 of us left. Mm-hmm. They didn't get the 13-0 vote that they wanted. They wanted map 2. They didn't get that. They got an 8-5, so it was not unanimous. So it was not a good thing for them.
Unanimous has to be
13-0.
Okay, it has to be unanimous.
Has to be unanimous. They didn't get that. But it still passed to go to LA City Council. They were going to support it. Even had they got 13-0 for map 1, they were still going to go to map 2. Mm. Okay, now, I tell you that story because if you listen to every single meeting, you will hear how I fought against map 2. Now, one of those 2 guys that I mentioned earlier without mentioning their names did a podcast of his own. And he accused me in that podcast of supporting map 2, which hurts our community. Now, if you listen to his podcast and you listen to all the meetings, you'll say, wait a minute, what did he listen to? And that's exactly what I go through. This is what I go through on some of these social media, National Enquirer type pages. All they're doing is just using snippets to make people say something that they didn't say, and that's not right. You're deceiving people. Why? But the good thing is that I get a lot of messages from people who say, hey, look, I'm on that other page, but I know what's going on. I just want to let you know you got our support for this. I said, look, do they really think that people aren't aware of what's going on? But there's some people that aren't. And I think that the people who came out to City Hall and they had a mission. They want to support the vendors. Right. In fact, they're very happy because they actually said that we backtracked and now we gave them what they no. Look at state law. State law says that we have to do this, and that's what I called for from day one. When we put this item on the agenda, I called that we do exactly what we have here, and they said now they opened it up based on what we want. Now they're going to allow street vendors at the park. Well, that's what state law says. Even if I wanted to object to it, which I didn't want to object to it. I didn't have a problem with it. But even if I wanted to, I can't. State law says that street vendors are allowed to be at the park.
That's one of the things too, where like, because the main guy is Alex Enamorado, right? And I've been following him and his like, he has like, I don't want to call it street justice, but he likes to bring a form of like attention to street vendors in a manner that's maybe not as polite as you, maybe not as like, like button up and political, but he just kind of says how he feels,
But I don't want to criticize that because I've seen some of the things. Look, I was just watching, I think one of the things that you had where a lady was harassed by an individual. Why is that allowed? Why is that being allowed to happen? Why, if somebody doesn't want a vendor, you don't have the right to go push their items all over the place. So sometimes politeness has to be put to the side, and
you have to fight fire with fire. Sometimes.
You have to be more aggressive, and so I'm not going to be critical of that. But again, I think he's fighting against me based on what he's been told.
Yeah, that's what it is. He's but I think my point is this. What I'm trying to say is like, even though you guys are completely different as far as like maybe on like
the approach,
you guys are fighting the same battle. Like,
yes.
There's no reason why you guys shouldn't be working together. And it's just, I think to me, it's like unfortunate that he got some information from people who just straight up hate you, and they probably just fed him the information that it was only geared towards making you look bad, without giving you the opportunity to defend yourself. And because you're easy to talk to, obviously we're here sitting down, you're in my house and we're sitting down and talking, you're very easy to talk to, and I think you guys working together will do more for the community than you guys trying to be at odds. And it seems to me like you don't want to be at odds with anybody that's trying to do good for the community.
Well, look, I've been described as a Buddhist. And
I get that. I get that little vibes.
Yeah, and look, and it's not that I was raised Catholic, but at some point I started having friends who are from different religions, and I started realizing that they all believe the same things, right? They just interpret things a little bit different.
Right.
But at the end, people have goodness in them, and I would hope that people look at people like Enamorado and know that he's actually trying to do the right thing. Maybe his approach is a little bit too aggressive for some, I guess.
Right.
But
some people also love it.
Yeah, and some people love it. And
like
again,
about time someone stands up for us,
Yeah, and again, when I look, and I know that right now there's an argument between him and the other guy, South Central.
Right. Yeah, there's like there's a feud between the.
But they're fighting the same fight though, and I again, I think that sometimes there's a call for that. Sometimes there's a need for a more aggressive approach. Recently I had a conversation with a lady by the name of Maria Estrada, and Maria Estrada and I were always on separate ends, because I didn't know her, and I'd heard some things about her, but I'm like this, I'm not ready to judge because I just don't know her. But there were some comments that she had made, but she had made those comments also based on some things that were being said.
Right.
And then one day, she went over to go talk to me, and she talked to me at the snack bar. And not only did she talk to me, but she saw that we were working and loading stuff, and she said, "Well, look, she said, I don't want to just stand around. Let me help." So she started helping us put supplies in, and I think we had like a 2-hour conversation. And she realized, no, what I was told is different. And, we actually hugged and we took a selfie and everything. And I really have a much deeper appreciation for who she is as a person. Again, I know that there have been some things that she's done that people will be critical of. And I guess because we all have the right to do that, right? Look, I'm a vegetarian. I'm pescatarian. I eat fish because my cardiologist wants me to eat that. But I I saw a bullfight years ago that kind of sort of made me feel like, no, man, that's a beautiful animal. We're the beast for enjoying that, you know? And so I gave up eating meat. So I eat fish sparingly, but I do it because, again, my cardiologist wants me to do that. But I don't judge people who are eating their carnitas or they're eating, you know, their hamburgers or pastrami's or what have you.
Right.
But I don't believe in killing animals. You know, some guy made some remarks because I own Allbirds shoes. It says they're expensive. They're cheaper than like Adidas and stuff like that, but they want to make the big deal. I got a few pairs of these, but these are environmentally friendly shoes. Mm-hmm. You know, they're made by the rubber is from a rubber tree plant of some sort, you know, whatever. And so, you know, people want to dress whatever the way they want to dress. They want to cut their hair a certain way. You know, back in my day, if I'd gone to school with blue hair, what's wrong with this guy? But nowadays, kids have blue hair, red hair, green hair, whatever, and it's normal, you know? And I think that people need to just respect one another. You know, I may not agree with what, you know, you do, but that's you.
Right.
It's not hurting me at all. And again, street vendors, you know, and again, if you listen to the actual meeting before they came over, I said, these vendors have rights. You know, and again, I'm going to encourage people, listen to the April 11th meeting. That's before we got the visits from the auditors. And you'll hear where I say these people have rights. But is that mentioned on these social media outlets that want to attack? No, let's not let them hear that. But, you know, I mentioned how, you know, things that we experience in our life are the things that, you know, make us who we are today. Sometimes we change.
Right, yeah.
Even that we change because today is different.
Right.
You know, expectations are different.
Yeah, I'm not the same guy I was when I was 18, you know?
We would hope. But we would hope that we're better people, right?
Yeah.
And so we're not ready to accept things, then, you know, and so, you know, I've been asked, do you hate these guys who attack you? No, I don't hate them.
Are you open to working with them?
Yeah, they want to. Absolutely. Look, I'll give you a good example. I was invited by my friend, Pastor Mendez, to a prayer breakfast. It was a National Day of Prayer. And he had different people going up to say a prayer about something. And, you know, he said, now I'm going to invite my good friend, Vice Mayor Gil Hurtado, to come in and speak. And say a prayer. And I'm not a pastor. He caught me by surprise, right? And he says, but I can ad-lib, you know, kind of quick, you know. Again, when you're 63 years old, there's a memory in there. You kind of pull it, right? Something that you can reach out for.
Right.
So he asked me to pray for every elected official who gets harassed and abused because, you know, we work hard to make the communities better, and to be abused and stuff like that is just not something that should be tolerated.
Right.
So I go up and I had no idea what I was going to say. So I just said, okay, what do you have in here? What do you feel in here? So I said, Pastor Mendez, I appreciate you wanting me to say a prayer for the elected officials for the abuses that we take. But I'm going to change it up on you if that's okay with you. We're going to be fine. We know what we got ourselves into. So I want to ask that we pray for the people who have the hatred in them, who are attacking us, because they need it a little bit more. They're probably good people, but they're angry. And sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's misunderstood, but whatever it is. And because we've got nothing but pastors here, let me remind everybody about Matthew chapter 20. And I didn't know where I was going to go with it, but I told them, look, for those of you that are not pastors, Matthew chapter 20 talks about the owner of a vineyard who goes to the marketplace early in the morning and, you know, hires a group of people, and they reach an agreement, right, that they're going to get paid a denarius for working basically like a 12-hour shift. And so in the, you know, third hour, the owner of the vineyard goes out to the marketplace, gets another group of people and tells them, look, I need you guys to work for me. I'll pay you what's fair. He did the same thing at the 6th and 9th hour. On the 11th hour, he goes back out there and he sees a small group of people, says, hey, why are you guys just standing around doing nothing? They said, well, we need to work, but nobody hired us. And, he says, well, tell you what, there's an hour left in the day. Come on over, finish off the day, and I'll give you what's fair. So in the 12th hour, the owner of the vineyard goes over to the foreman and says, look, I want you to line everybody up in this fashion, and this is what I want you to pay them. So the people who just got there put their hand out, and they got a denarius. So as the line went up, everybody was getting a denarius. But the people in the back who'd been there for 12 hours said, hey, imagine what we're going to get if they got a denarius and they've only been here for about an hour. Imagine what we're going to get. So when it finally got to them, they put their hand out and they got a denarius and they blew a gasket. Said, wait a minute, what's this? Well, what do you mean, what's this? Well, you gave them a denarius. They've only been here for 1 hour. We've been here in the whole, hot sun working for 12 hours and you made us equal. So then the owner comes over and says, what's the problem? Well, you gave them a denarius. They were only here 1 hour. We've been here for 12 hours. Why'd you only give us? Look, you agreed to that. I didn't take anything away from you. We agreed to a denarius. To them, we just agreed to what would be fair. So go about your business and, let it go. The moral of the story is the last will be first and the first will be last. What it translates to is this. If Gil has been a good person all his life, maybe he's going to go to heaven. If Gil has been a bad person all his life, but then in the final years he realizes, I've been bad, and all of a sudden he's good, he too goes to heaven. Everybody gets to go to heaven, at that point. And so I want people to be, again, they might not be religious or whatever, but anybody that's out there, again, I'm 63. I'm happy. I've been happily married for 42 years. I have a wonderful son, wonderful daughter, wonderful grandchildren. And I have a community who I really, look, I could have moved out a long time ago. I'm retired. I can go anywhere I want to go. But I love the community. I got here in 1984. I chose Southgate because of the people. And it's the people that keep me here. I love the people. I love the community. And I want to continue to serve them to the best of my ability. And if I choose to run or not run in the next election, it's going to be a decision my wife and I make. I want to spend more time with my family. I announced to my board that I might be leaving the JAA at the end of this next year that, goes through 2024, the middle of 2024. And they were stunned, And I've had people call me who heard about this. And you can't leave the JAA. You can't leave the JAA. Yes, I can. If we learned something November 22nd, 1963, that's when JFK got shot, is that life goes on, right. And so I think I've left the blueprints. If you really, really want to make this program affordable for the kids, you need to work hard. And you need to surround yourself. In 2014, I received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Commission for Southgate Youth. And I was stunned, and I felt that the only way I would go up there and accept it is if I accepted it on behalf of everyone involved with the Southgate JAA, because there's no way I could do the work that's done without my board members. All of them are extraordinary people. The same thing goes with AYSO. The same thing with Southgate Aquatics. Same thing with Southgate Youth Football. Laura Gonzalez has been running that program for over 30 years, and the amazing work that they do. And I mean, that's a more expensive program, but that's because, you need more pads. Those pads are very expensive. You need the helmets. You need the insurance is much more expensive and stuff. And, God bless them, they do their best, and even they get criticized, and it's just horrible. Let the people work. The Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, all of them do amazing things for our community. And I think people should be more appreciative of anybody who's out there committing, their time.
Yeah.
To programs like that. It's for the youth.
But I definitely want to get into how Southgate has changed. To me, back in the day growing up, we used to have to go to Downey, to the mall, different cities, Montebello Mall, to spend our money, to buy things, right? We used to have Miller Outposts. We used to have different little stores here. But in for the most part, Southgate has always been, to me, the way I see it, right? I could be wrong, obviously, is like a drive-by city. You drive on the way to work, you drive by it on the way to your house. You don't really stop and shop here. But in the recent years, there's been some major improvements. First, the park. The park, I think it has like a $3 million, $2 million renovation of the park, which looks super nice compared to how it used to. The park, we have one of the best parks in the area for sure. The park has always been one of the best parks in the area, I think. So people from all over different cities come to, right? But then you guys upgraded it. Firestone. I live on Firestone, right? So the center divider thing that you guys put the palm trees also looks very beautiful. Now we have an In-N-Out. We have a Walmart. We have that great Azalea shopping center. So many upgrades have been made to the city. How does that affect our budget as far as, like, I don't know, taxes or money? I want to get into how that provides more services to our city. How do we get the money for it? There's a new thing happening by the river. I want to know all about all the new stuff and great things that you guys are doing for the city.
All right. So budgets are very complicated and very difficult to explain, but let me try it this way. When you think of Firestone, for example,
right?
Firestone did not belong to Southgate. Firestone belonged to the state of California.
Interesting.
And so one day, because every city where Firestone ran in would say, hey, there's potholes here. Hey, there's a problem here. Hey, there's a problem there. State of California basically, washed their hands of it and said, all the cities, Firestone is now yours. And so whenever there was a project that needed to be done on Firestone, it was paid for by the state of California. Now we have to do it. So that's an expense that we have to pay for that we didn't have to pay for before. Okay. We have a budget that, let me see if I can explain it in the simplest of terms, okay?
Please do.
So there are three major areas in which cities get money. Three major areas. And when I say money, there's grants out there. There's state grants, there's federal grants, CDBG funding. Those are community development type of things that come in from federal. We all pay federal taxes, state taxes, property taxes, and the whole bit. But the city has what's known as a general fund. That general fund comes from three basic areas, okay? One area is the sales tax. And the city of Southgate has a 10.25 sales tax. We have a property tax, but the city of Southgate only retains 6.15% of that property tax. Everything else goes to the state and the county and whatever. So I'm going to leave that. I said there's three. I'm going to leave the other one as a secret at the end. Okay. Now, what you'll hear on social media is that the city of Southgate has the highest taxes in the nation. We're at 10.25.
That's a huge narrative online for sure.
That's not true.
Okay.
The highest taxes just in, I'm going to stick to LA County along because state of California is huge. Okay. Up north is Alameda County. They have three cities that are 10.5 sales tax. In LA County, Santa Fe Springs is at 10.75.
Wow.
And law only allows up to 10.25. How those cities got away with it, I don't know. Okay. Now in LA County, there's 46 or 47 cities that are also at 10.25. Get that? So it's not just Southgate. It's not just Southgate and Pico Rivera. Mm-hmm. There's 46 or 47 cities that have that.
Damn.
Look it up. So whenever somebody says, oh, we have the highest taxes and muchos taxes in Southgate, tanto que pagamos, so much that we pay. No. You get 10.25 and there's 46 or 47 cities that have that. And that number is growing because more and more cities are doing that. Okay? Now, part of the problem is that negative comments are being put on social media. But the other problem is that we're not doing a good job at all of explaining this to people. And I've been bringing this up over and over again. And now I'm pushing that we do a little bit more of educating people on this. So at the last couple of meetings that we've had, like the budget sessions and stuff, we start off with explaining to people that in fact, Southgate is one of the lowest in taxing its residents. That's a fact. That is not a rumor. That's not an opinion. That is a fact. Now, I mentioned that there's 3. Okay. Now I'm going to throw a surprise quiz on you. Okay. And don't worry, everybody fails it. There's a thing called a utility users tax.
Okay.
Gas, water, electricity, phone, cell phone, cable, and internet are 7 types of utilities. And cities have imposed taxes on a variety of those 7. Some of them do it just on 1 or 2 of those things. Some of them do it on all 7.
Does that show up on the bill somewhere?
You will. I think if you look at your water bill and stuff like that. But I'm tricking you here. I'm tricking you, and I'm doing it on purpose. So, utility users, if you were to get your bill right now, you'll say, "Wait a minute, Gil. You said it's on the bill." Well, it is on the bill, but I'm tricking you. I'm gonna explain why. The city of Downey has a 10% sales tax. We have 10.25. City of Downey has, I think it's either 4 or 4.5 utility users tax. Okay. There are some cities that have as much as 9, 10, or 11%. So using those 2, 4% and let's say 11%, where do you think South Gate is in taxing its residents in utility users tax?
Probably the same as Downey, 4%.
About 4%. Failed. Okay. Now, if you were to see in Downey the 10% plus 4%, that's 14% that they'll be paying on one of those utilities or multiple.
Basically, like total tax they're paying is 14%.
14%. When you see ours in Southgate, you'll see 10.25. Wait a minute. So if it's 10.25 with the sales tax, how come it's still 10.25 if you add the utility users tax? Because we don't have one. We're at 0.
Wow.
See? Now, when people start saying, "Oh, the utility, all these taxes," I actually sat with the city manager and I said, "I need your help, man. And I know it's going to cost a little bit of staff time to do this research. And I want you to do a per capita sales or tax collection by city." If you look at the numbers, and I don't have them really memorized,
right?
But if you look at the numbers, we're at and again, these are, and excuse me if they're off, but ballpark, we're at about 30%, $30 per capita, and most cities are well over 100. In other words, that's the gap. We're a whole lot less than most cities in taxing their people. And I recommend everyone who's listening to do this research on their own. Look, I tell people, don't believe everything you hear. Don't believe everything that people are saying on social media, not even if it's coming from me.
Is this information that you're saying as far as the taxes is like public record that you can go find somewhere?
It's on our it's probably one of the first pages in our budget for this year, 2023 to 2024.
And that's easily available on the website?
Absolutely. And
so what you're saying is Southgate is one of the least taxed cities?
Absolutely.
In the nation, in the county, like everywhere?
So the fact that we don't have a utility users tax and most cities have it, the fact that we're at 10.25 and most cities are there. You have some cities that are like at 6% or 7%, but they also have some other revenue that comes in, right? For example, if you look at a city like Cerritos, I don't know what their sales tax is, but they have that whole area of those car sales. Money keeps on coming in to them, right? And then you have cities that have, for example, like a casino. That brings in a lot of revenue. We don't have one because people don't want it here.
Or amusement parks, stuff like that.
Something that brings in revenue, right?
Right.
Now, we don't have those things. So we have to rely on smart managing of the money. And over the years, for the most part, we are. That's why we're not taxing our people that much. But there's some areas there that we are failing to properly control. Look, if you today have this much salary and income that comes in and this much in expenses, let's say 5 years from now, your expenses go up, but your revenue does not. You got a problem.
Right. You can go broke.
You could go broke. You could go bankrupt. So what you have to do is stay with the times, right? Now, what helps us is that when when people go out and buy anything that is taxed
In Southgate.
5 years from now, that item's going to be more expensive. So that means we're still going to collect a little bit more from the sales tax. But there are some areas here that cannot be taxed that readily. Okay? So I'll give you a good example. If you look at I think it's in the water bill, there's a sewer fee that you have to pay for. Mm-hmm. That fee has not changed since 2010. And right now, we're spending over $800,000 from general fund money to recoup that money. In other words, money that could be spent for other things like potholes or whatever. We have to use general fund money to offset that.
So the general fund money can be used for other things, but instead of using it for those things, you guys are just choosing to give us a discount on the sewer stuff?
It's not a choice. It's that we've not done anything to update it.
It's just kind of flown under the radar type of thing?
Well, not mine, because I've been addressing this issue for a long time. And I'm being criticized and one of those social media pages are saying, oh, Gil Hurtado wants to raise your sewer rates 3 times the normal.
What would you raise it and what would you do with the money if you did
So what we do is this, right? We have staff that looks at numbers, mm-hmm. and we allow them to prepare an option for us. Now, understand something. There's a thing called the 218 vote. Okay. What's a 218 vote? That means that if we want to raise the sewer rate, we can't do it on a vote from the council. We have to put it. It's like a rule 218 of the state laws or whatever. But what that is, a 218 vote is required, and the voters have to agree to increase the fee.
The citizens of the city.
Well, it's the property owners of
So only people who own houses, not people who live in apartments.
Well, so you only get the one vote from the property owner of the apartment.
Oh, okay. Every resident gets one vote.
No, only the owner of the property. Let's say you own an apartment building and there's 50 people that live there.
That's
only the owner, only the property owner. If you have a duplex, the owner of the property does that. Okay? And
interesting.
We've not raised that fee since 2010. But I've also pointed out we also need to change the street light and landscaping fund. That one has not been changed for about 20 some odd years. And that one is worse. I think we're paying like $1.3 million of general fund money to cover that. Well, it's underfunded, but it's also the landscaping part of it. But look, again, the idea is that in order for us to change this, we need to educate the people. We need to properly educate them. In the last election, there was a ballot measure. I don't remember what the ballot measure was. Was it CC, something like whatever it was. No, whatever the ballot, forget the CC. Whatever that ballot measure was, it did not pass. On social media, some people were saying that we're doing this to balance our books because we're mismanaging. That's not true. And that was not going to affect, it's a business license fee. Right now we have some businesses, big businesses, that are paying zero. Why?
In Southgate.
In Southgate. Why? Because our books have not changed. We have to change it.
Is there a way where, because I think obviously if you ask the citizens like, all right, where should we get more money? I think the first thing is they go, well, don't tax us, tax Walmart, tax In-N-Out, tax these big corporations who can afford it. Is that something you guys have the power to do?
So no, because it requires a 218 vote. A tax is a tax that, again, look. So
all you can do is add it to a ballot or add it to a vote.
Yeah.
You can't force it on them.
Right, because again, the 10.25, how we got that was this. Okay, in 2008, we put a ballot measure in for people to vote. It was to increase the sales tax from 9.25 to 10.25. Mm-hmm. It was a 1 cent sales tax measure. It was Measure P. But at that time, we hired a consultant, and we asked them, how do we get this message out to people? So we reached the consultant, and the consultant said, you got to educate people. You got to send mailers out to let people know. Well, because this was so important, and you have to remember at that time, our employees, every one of our employees took a 10% pay cut because they trusted that we were doing everything we could to balance the books. Now, why was it so off kilter? Well, there was a recession. There was a recession that had just gone by. And so because we wanted to make sure that we're stable and we don't lose money, we want to make sure that we keep our services up. Now, had it been voted down, we would have had to find some different way of doing things. We might have had to contract out our police department. We might have had to contract out, and you don't get the same level of services when you do that kind of stuff. That being said, our employees understood that, and they helped us get the word out. And that ballot measure passed overwhelmingly. So voters agreed to pay this additional 1 cent sales tax. Okay, so
1% or 1 cent.
It's 1% is still 1 cent, no matter how you, because if you get 100 cents, it's $1, right?
That's your math.
I'm a math guy.
But you see how like words make it so much more like the cent sounds better, but the percent is like 1% is 1%.
Believe me, and I apologize because my head, turns. Right, my head works in numbers. Sometimes I frustrate staff. One time there was a budget session, and the public works director had put some numbers up on the screen. And everybody was saying, "Oh, wow, that's." And I said, "Wait, excuse me, did you check your math?" He said, "Yeah, I did." "Okay, are you sure?" City manager Mike Flatt says, "Councilman Hurtado, why are you questioning that?" "Well, because I'm just looking at it. It doesn't look right to me. I'm looking at the screen. The math doesn't jive." He says, "Well, wait a minute. What did? Because I don't see you writing it now. Well, I just did it in my head." So then the public works director said, "Well, let me double check it now." City manager says, "Yeah, I'll double check it also." And the city attorney says, "Well, I'll double check it too." I said, "Okay, I'll just wait for you guys." And then the public work, they were taking a long time. And I said, "So what's going on?" He said, "Well, I've done it twice and it's come out wrong twice. You're right, your numbers are correct." City manager said, "Yeah, I took a long time because I came up with a different number too." City attorney said, "Yeah, me too." And they said, "What did you come up with?" I said, "I couldn't tell you because I didn't write it, but it's a few $100,000 off."
Dang.
And they said, "You're right." And I said, "Well, okay, look, let's just make sure we fix it. That's all. Yeah. We want to make sure that I don't want to go out here and approve something and then we're off,
right.
8, 9, 10 months from now." And the city manager pulled me aside after and said, "How'd you do that math real quick?" I said, "Look, I went to Garfield High. Math was my favorite subject. I was the first junior at Garfield to take AP Calculus. I was a student with Mr. Escalante."
Were you part of that movie?
No.
That was before you?
That was after. So what happened is that and this is the reason that the movie was made good. I had a teacher, wonderful teacher in math by the name of Mr. Thacker. And Mr. Escalante is the one who encouraged me to take calculus as a junior because he was my trigonometry and math analysis teacher. And he just thought that math came real easy for me. Mr. Thacker retired and then Mr. Escalante took over and I was a teacher's aide to him and we worked close together. And there were some calculations that he was doing wrong. I said, "Kimo, no. Okay, well, because when you don't do it, like right now, I couldn't do it.
Oh, okay.
But if I sat with someone and they showed me how to do it a couple of times, it'll come back, right? And that's how it was with Mr. Escalante. And so the reason that the students were accused of cheating was that, let's say that he showed them 10 different things, all right? And there's more, but let's just for simplicity's sake, that there's 10 different things. And he showed them how to do these 5 things correctly, but he showed them how to do this one incorrectly. And he did this one correctly and this one incorrectly and these 2 correct. All the students at Garfield had the same right answers here, the same wrong answers here, the same right answers here, and the same wrong answer here. Why? Because they all did the computations the way Mr. Escalante taught them, so they had the same wrong answers. So without looking at anything, just looking at how the scores were coming in very similar for every student, they said they must have cheated. And so, no, it was just that he taught them wrong.
Your daughter's right, dude. You're like Forrest Gump. You know what it is too. It's also that like
I'm old.
No, well maybe, but yeah. Social media has made it where like we don't even have to use our brains for memories anymore. We just take pictures, record videos, and Facebook will remind us what our memories are. Yeah. Where I think back in the day, before you have to actually remember your life.
Things. Yeah.
So you're actually a really good storyteller. My dad is too. Before we go, I just want to end it on real quick. Like, how did we get in and out? How did we get Walmart? How did that situation break down, and how does that help us? As
I can do this kind of quick for you. So we don't go out and say, "Hey, we want you to come in." Okay? We can't force people to come in. All we can do is open the door for opportunity. Now, in our community, we have a lot of people who would like to see like a Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's will not come here. They have this little formula that they go by, that of the average income of households is not over 65,000, for example, they'll not come, and we're not there. We're nowhere near that. That the education level has to be high. That you have to have a lot of people who have bachelor's and master's degree of, not everyone, but, the number of college educated people has to be higher.
Wow.
That's the same thing that every business out there wants to do. Edwards Theaters did not want to come here either, but somehow staff and council members convinced them to come in. They took a chance, and it's one of the top grossing in the nation. Starbucks did not want to come in, but Henry Gonzalez, he rest in peace, he met with Magic Johnson and convinced them to take a chance, and they opened up one, and it did so well that now we have multiple.
That one's always packed. The one in Long Beach, right?
Yeah. In-N-Out did not want to come in, and they took a chance, and now it's nonstop.
Yeah, that's
I couldn't convince Trader Joe's to come in, but what they did is said, look, we appreciate your approach to this, but we're still going to say no to you. But how would you like a sister company to Trader Joe's to come in? I said, I didn't know it had one. It says, have you ever heard of Aldi? I said, no. They said they're in the East Coast and they're looking for a place to come. I said, let's bring them over. So Aldi, South Gate is the first one to sign them. And there were some delays, so Pico was the second place to sign them, and they opened up before, but we were the first ones to sign them on the West Coast. But you won't get certain companies to come in here. Will we ever get a Robinson's May? No. Will we ever get a Trader Joe's? No. But you have to look at it that we live in a community of 100,000 people.
Right.
And as much as there are so many people that want those kind of businesses to come in, when we bring them in, you have the other side. The other people who say, oh, no, they're trying to gentrify our community. And
that's true.
So, remember the Kobayashi Maru? It's a no-win scenario. So we have to find balance. And so we do what we can to entice people to come in and invest. And certainly, drama doesn't help.
Would you consider Southgate like a commercial city?
No, not really. Downey has you have the Stonewood Mall and you have the Downey Landing or whatever they have. They have other stuff like that.
Maybe not commercial. I'm sorry. You know how we have like a lot of like businesses, like industrial businesses, right?
So we have that, and I really think that after we have what's known as a general plan, right? What we do with the general plan is it sets the tone for the coming years, and we invite members of the community to come in and engage, right? What do you want to see in the city? More parks, more this, more that, more the other thing. And based on the information that we gathered is how we set up our general plan. So when people say, hey, how come they don't allow people to park on their lawns? There's a parking issue. Well, because the people who came in insisted that we don't allow people to park on their lawn. People don't want Christmas lights on all year long. It's in our general plan, or it's in our municipal code, and most of that is from the general plan information that we get. So if people said, hey, we need more jobs here, more industrial, boom, let's do that. But look, there's the things that really hurt cities like Southgate are things that are happening at the state level. They're the ones who put these Senate bills out here about street vendors. They're the ones who said these are the parameters. They have to have business license. They have to do this. They have to do that. That's state law. That's not Gil Hurtado law. That's not Southgate law. We have to comply with state law. So if people want to be angry, talk to the state. They imposed it. Look, Southgate is built out. But the state of California has this thing called RHNA numbers. And RHNA, the RHNA stand, I don't know what the acronym stands for, but they determine how many housing units we have to bring into the city of Southgate. And their number says that we have to create 8,282 more housing opportunities. Where?
Yeah.
Where are we going to do that?
Yeah, it's packed.
But here you have a city like Jurupa that I'm familiar with. Jurupa is about 7 times the size of Southgate geographically. Mm-hmm. 7 times. But yet, they have the same population as we do, roughly 100,000. But yet the state says that they only have to come up with roughly 2,400 units. Wait a minute. How does that work? They only have to come up with, they have more space.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think their number is higher? And these are state mandates. The state mandated that we allow people to build housing units in their backyard. To me and a couple of other people, it's like they want, think about this. The state of California now says that we can allow people to convert their garage anywhere in the state of California. Well, do you think people in Beverly Hills are going to put their garage? No. But to the state is, oh, no, we didn't go after people of low income communities. We didn't go after you. Look, they have to do that too. I mean, they have to open it up for people to do that if they want. But who wants to in Beverly Hills? Who wants to in West LA? That's only going to happen in low income communities. And it's like they're trying to bunch us all up. And it's frustrating because we have no choice. And when you look at South Gate, most of the houses, over 60%, are the owners don't live in South Gate. They're renting out. And so does it hurt them to convert their garage and rent it out? No. It just creates more overcrowding of schools, more parking issues, things we can't control.
All right, I want to end on that one because we only got a little bit of time left. What would you do to fix the parking situation?
Well, the city did a parking study. I can't say, hey, let's get 20 people on that end, get 20 people on this end, let's pull to make the street bigger. We do not have a street
I wish that was a thing. I wish
that would be easier, right? But with the size of our lots are what determine it, right? So the city has various options that were out there through the through the parking study. And all people have to do is go in and say, hey, look, I live on such and such. What options do I have? I don't know how many different options were given, but they spent a lot of money. The city spent a lot of money on a parking study. And what did they come up with? You're overpopulated. Well, we knew that.
Yeah, right.
You have a parking issue. Well, we knew that too. So how do we solve it? So how you solve it is you let the people on each block determine what they want to do. How do you want to solve it? And there's options out there. All people have to do is go in and look. But not one solution is good for every block.
It's not uniform. But what are some of the options?
Well, in some, they have preferential parking. And a lot of people have taken that option.
Is it like a permit parking?
It's a permit parking.
What's another option?
Well, there's some that allow for people to have, in some areas they've allowed more, like a widening of their driveway a little bit.
I think to me that one makes the most sense.
Yeah, and again, but is that good for everyone? I don't know. I mean, so again, and it's hard to go through a whole list of things because what might be good for this person might not be good for that one. And I think the last thing I want to do is confuse people. And I want people to, okay, we have a problem. How do we solve it? Go to our city hall and take a look at all the options that are out there. And, I remember one candidate said that what she would do is that she would limit the number of cars that people can have. You can't do that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they can't do that.
Let them know where they can find you.
Yeah. So look, I'm readily available for a conversation. I think I try to respond to people on social media. I send them private messages because one of the things that you don't want to do is this, right? When any comment is made, it can be taken out of context, and I don't want that. I want people to, they have a specific issue, specific problem. Mm-hmm. They can always reach out to council members, and I get calls from people, and I don't have a problem telling people, no, what you're asking for cannot be done. I wish it could, but I'm Gil. I'm a guy from East LA. I'm Gil. Look, you can call me Gil. You can call me Gilbert. You can call me Gilberto. You can call me Beto. I sound like the guy from, I think it was Saturday Night Live. You can call me Jay. You can call me Ray. You can call me Ray J. You can call me Ray JJ. But look, I answer to all of them. That's my name. Some people, Mr. this. Man, when you call me Mr., I look back, see my dad's back there. That's him. He's Sir. He's Mr. Right. He was my pops. But, I'm Gil. Just, make it simple.
Gil, I want to thank you so much for coming. I think, honestly, I could talk to you for hours. You're just a wealth of information. I want to reach out and tell you thank you for coming. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to Gil's word. Hopefully you come back and talk again. I have so many more questions, but just to not, take 4 hours of people's time, we'll do I think we're at an hour, 2 hours already. Hopefully you come back soon. Go talk more about it. Thank you again. You guys have been listening to Lerada. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you guys later. Peace.